We have all heard of the 5 stages of grief. It's everywhere we look, it seems like, especially after some major tragedy like an airplane crash or a school shooting. Since 1969, when Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross published her book on death and dying, we've talked about denial and anger and bargaining and depression and acceptance, what she labeled as the 5 stages that she had observed in dying people. To my remembrance, nowhere during her active teaching career did she talk about those 5 stages as being applied to the post-death grief that bereaved people most often experience, though there was a book published around the time of her death that had her name as a co-author that talked about the 5 stages of grieving. But interestingly, virtually no clinical bereavement professionals talk about grief in terms of stages today. We talk about the journey of grief, the pathway through grief, the experiences of grief, the process of grief, but we avoid language that implies that grief is done in some sequential, stepwise fashion. So one of the things that happens for people when they expect to progress through a set of stages in grief is they expect that they will experience, for example, anger or sadness or depression one time, and then when they have finished experiencing that for this moment, they expect they've done that and are ready to move on. The problem with that is that none of these experiences can be described as a discrete category or phase. For example, after my father died in 1993, my mom told me that one evening she was sitting in the recliner in the living room where she and Dad had always watched Jeopardy together. She heard a car door slam outside. This had been 6, maybe 7 months after Dad died. She told me later that she caught herself on her feet on her way to the front door to greet him and welcome him home when she realized, oh no, it can't be. He died. And she told me that she collapsed back into her chair and sobbed the rest of the evening. And I think that encapsulates the problem with thinking about grief in stages. Is if she had expected that her denial had been a discrete stage that occurred at the very beginning of her grief, this episode, 6 or 7 months after Dad's death, would surely have made her think she was losing her mind. In her case, fortunately, she had a bereavement professional for a son with whom she could talk about that. Most people don't have that resource.